Hi, I'm Rita. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Life Worth Reading. Today my setup is looking a little bit differently. I'm in my living room. I'm in front of my Christmas tree, and I just wanted to film my last video of the year, and I cannot go into 2025 without talking about the worst books of 2024. I have already filmed my best books of 2024 if you want to check that out, but now it is time to talk about the worst books that I read this year and the books that I desperately want to leave in 2024 and that I want to forget so I can have a clean slate in the new year. Also, maybe I shouldn't bring attention to this because maybe you had nothing negative to say, but I am experimenting for the first time in my life with makeup. I know it's not the greatest look you've ever seen, but we're working on it. We're getting better at it, and 2025 will be my makeup year, so expect to see me looking a little bit differently in my videos. Now, to talk about the worst books of 2024. As I mentioned in my previous video about the best books that I read, this wasn't a horrible reading year. I had a good enough time, I cannot complain, but I did find some books that I didn't really like. Let's just put that lightly. Basically, this video will be divided into two categories. We have my DNFs, and these DNFs were bad DNFs. DNFs because I wasn't enjoying the book, because I didn't think that this was a good book, because I was not having a good time. It's not the kind of DNF. I have others that are part of that list that I will not mention today, because those are DNFs of this is not the right timing for this book. I'm not really feeling it. It's not bad, it's just not capturing my attention. These books I thought were not good enough to continue. So we're going to divide that into my DNFs, my did not finish books, and then the books that I did finish that I did not give a high rating to. The first book that I want to talk about is actually one of the only ones that I can say this book just was not for me. I don't think it's objectively bad. It just really was not for me, and that is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I feel really bad about saying this because this is a romance that a lot of people love, but one, I am not really a romance girly. I love a romance in a book. I don't love a romance book, and so I really thought this would work for me because this is about two writers and this is a second chance romance, so they've had a relationship, kind of a fling before, and now they are reuniting and finding out that they have been both thinking about each other and writing about each other in their own novels, in their own stories. The problem with it for me is that I did not realize, I should have read the synopsis better. I did not realize that the time before the first relationship that we're following is in high school. And I really was not a fan of those flashbacks. I thought it was so cringe. I thought it was so over the top, so very Wattpad. And I just was really not feeling it. I wish they could have been a little bit older and then reuniting again when they're even older. I don't know, just the high school flashbacks really did not work for me. I thought them to be super cheesy, and I was really invested in the present timeline, but I could not get over those flashbacks, so I ended up DNFing this book. But again, this is a very acclaimed romance book, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. If you think you would like that, give it a try, because I didn't think that the writing was bad. It was just the theme. I should have known better. I should have looked into it. Next up, I want to talk about Reputation by Lex Croucher. Again, this is kind of a romance book. I should have known better, but my friend let me borrow this book, and this is kind of a contemporary, kind of Mean Girls teenage feel-good movie, but set during the Regency era. I thought I would really enjoy it, but the fact that we were stuck in the Regency era meant that everything was very limited. What they did, the parties that they went to, the drama that happened between them, it was all very limited, and it was very repetitive. The vibe of going to parties and things happening at parties, and then being away from parties, and then going back to the parties, and then things getting away, it was just very repetitive for me. I thought it would be more queer. It's a little bit queer. I thought it would be more queer. And then the principal romance of the book, I was not rooting for it. I didn't think that they had any chemistry at all, and everything was just kind of a miss for me. I was really not enjoying my time reading it. I DNF'd this really late into the game. I was almost at page like 300, but I just did not care anymore where this was going and where this was going to end up, because it was just very repetitive. Again, the setting was very limited during the time where it was set in, and I just didn't feel the vibes that I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel the romance, I wanted to feel that Regency era, but with a twist of contemporary, and I did not feel any of it. Then we have a book that I was actually very sad to DNF, and that is How to Sell a Haunted House by Greta Hendricks. I absolutely adored How to Slay Vampires. No. A Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires? My god, I'm totally blanking out on the complete name of the book, but you know what book it is. That book is a 5-star for me. I love that book with all my heart. I have reread it like 2 or 3 times. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, horror book. So I had high enough expectations going into How to Sell a Haunted House. It's a haunted house story, obviously, and it follows these 2 siblings who are dealing with their parents' very sudden demise, and they have to figure out what to do with the house that is haunted. And so they entered like this kind of warship because one wants to sell, one doesn't. And honestly, I got to the 50% mark. So I read until the 50% mark of this book, and it was so much more sad than it was ever horror. It was a little bit creepy. It's all about like kind of puppets. That's kind of where the horror element comes from. But it was so sad. It was absolutely so sad. We have this main character who is dealing with her parents' very, very sudden, out of nowhere demise. And then the only family that is left to her is her brother, who enters this war with her. And then also her relationship with her husband and her daughter that she had to leave back in another state, her infant daughter, is also not going very well. So nothing's going well for this main character. And it was just so sad. I was just not having a good time. I was like, I'm supposed to be scared. I'm not supposed to be sad. I'm not supposed to be thinking about my parents' demise. Please, can we move on to something a little bit spooky? I don't know. I just thought maybe it was not the right time for me to be reading that book, but it was just so upsetting to read, and not in the ways that you would think a horror book is upsetting to read. And I just was having the worst time ever. And so I just kind of had to DNF it because it was not going anywhere. I gave it a fair chance. I read 50% of it, and nothing scary had happened yet. Something's a little bit out of, something's a little bit creepy, but I was just sad the whole time. So that was not a good time. I had to DNF that one, and I'm very upset about it. I'm still going to read other Greta Hendricks books, but this one just did not work for me in the slightest. Another book that I DNF'd because I thought it was very boring and it was not doing anything for me was Embers by Sandra Marai. This was part of my TBR Destruction project. It's a book that I had owned. It was a TBR veteran, okay? And this book is about these 2 soldiers who have drifted apart over the years, and they're having like a final dinner when they're both old. And this is by a Hungarian author, and this was an attempt of me to broaden my horizons, read from other countries, read other authors, because I had never read a book set in Hungary or by a Hungarian author. But this just did not work for me in the slightest. I thought it was so boring as well. The writing style was really draining to read, and I also got 50% of the way through. This is a very short book, but I got 50% of the way through, and I was just like, I don't care. I genuinely do not care what comes next. I just don't give a fuck about anything that happens in this book. So I just had to DNF it. I'm not upset about it. I mean, I am, because this is kind of considered a modern classic, because this was written during the 30s, 40s. So I am a little bit upset about it. And it was a book that I bought several years ago because I thought I would enjoy it, but it turns out it really just was not for me. So I just moved on with my life, and I'm very, very glad that I did. Next up, another extremely depressing and disappointing DNF was The Book of Goose by Yoon Lee. I cannot believe this happened to me, quite honestly. This book was a 5-star prediction from the moment I laid my eyes on the cover. From the moment that I read the synopsis, I was like, this is it. This is the book for me. This is a read a book. This is something that I'm going to love. And it wasn't for any specific reason. So I didn't think that my expectations were that high in terms of I had specific reasons why I would enjoy this book. It was just vibes. It was honestly just vibes. And the disappointment of having to DNF a book that you thought was going to be a favorite. Terrible. Honestly, really, really terrible. I DNF'd this also really, really late. I gave it a fair chance. I DNF'd this at 70%, maybe even a little bit more. And the reason why I DNF'd this is a book following two main characters. They are friends since they were children. We have Agnes and we have Fabienne. It's set in this rural village in France in the 50s, 60s. And it says in the back that they are no longer friends in present day. Agnes finds out that Fabienne is dead through a letter, and she's just reflecting on where this rise to fame took them both and separated them. And so she's just kind of reflecting on this friendship that was not really a friendship. You find out it's very toxic, it's very weird, it's very strange. And she's just reflecting on that after finding out that her friend is dead. And I thought it was just bizarre, but not in a good way. Not in a weird girl kind of way. Bizarre in a sense that I genuinely don't know what this author was trying to do. And that always bugs me when I can't figure out an author's motivation to tell a certain story. I did not understand why this story was told. Why did I have to know about these characters? Why did I have to know about this? I genuinely just don't know. And that really bugs me. I thought that the main characters were not interesting. I did not care about their friendship. I thought it was toxic in a way that I didn't find particularly interesting. The rise to fame that they're talking about really wasn't that. And then from the halfway point, one of the characters just goes, this is not even a spoiler because it's so boring. How could this be a spoiler? She just goes into a school, so she has the opportunity to study, and then the rest of the book is just set at this school, and it's just so boring, and I did not get it. I thought this had such a huge potential, the story that I thought it was going to be, I thought had so much potential, and then the author just chose to focus on certain points that I did not find interesting in the slightest. I did not think that they were worth exploring. And again, I'm just dumbfounded. I just don't understand what the purpose of the story was. And I feel like that's such a weird way to feel about a book, but I really just, the girl is to get it, and I don't. I thought I would. I really, really don't get it. So, huge disappointment. I still don't know if I'm going to read Wednesday's Child by this author. I thought I would because I thought I was going to love the Book of Goose, but now I'm feeling really iffy about it. I do have another DNF to talk about, but that was actually my worst book of the year. So I'm going to leave it until the end. Now moving on to the books that I did finish, we have the second and third book in the Inheritance Games trilogy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I thought the first book was okay. I thought it was fun. I had a good enough time. The love triangle felt a little bit forced, but I was okay. Not into it, but also not really against it. If you don't know what the Inheritance Games is, it's about our main character Avery, who lives kind of poorly with her sister, so she does not have the support of her parents. If I remember correctly, it's something like that. She feels very unsupported in life, and she is going to be a senior soon, maybe. And one day, in another state, a billionaire dies. So it's kind of like a Knives Out situation where she receives this huge inheritance and she does not know this man. She does not know where he came from, where did he go. She did not know Cotton Eye Joe. So she didn't know this man. And she has to live in this house, this manor in Texas. I think she's in Connecticut or something. So she has to go to Texas and live in this house with his entire family that was left out of the inheritance for a year before she can actually inherit the whole thing. And so we have these four brothers, the grandsons of this Texas billionaire, and they are all very against her. They're wondering how did she con her way into having this inheritance. There's puzzles to solve, things to discover. I thought it was okay. I thought it was fun, and the setup for the next book I thought would be really interesting. And then the second book came, and it was just such a letdown. I did not care about anything that happened. All the tiny bits of magic that were in the first one were not in the second one. And the third one, what a letdown as well. When you're trying to figure out this whole time, okay, how did this Texas billionaire find out about a main character who does not have anything special about her, apparently, in another state? How did he find out about her, and why the hell is he leaving her this huge inheritance? And the answer to all that? Just no. Just no. Then there's like this villain that comes out of nowhere in the third book, and does really not, he does not matter. It was just such a letdown. The climax of the book, it's supposed to be really exciting. It's really, really not. It's over and like that. And it was just, the second and third books were just bad. If the first one was okay and a good enough time, the second and third books were bad. The only redeeming quality is that they are really, really fun to read and really easy to read. So you can binge. I binged the whole trilogy in like 4 days. So they are that, but it was just not good. And I thought it could have potential. It could have gone somewhere fun, and it just really, really didn't. And then there was like this melodramatic moments out of nowhere, and it was just no, just watch Knives Out instead, honestly. Next up, we have a book that was also not for me, and that is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, which is so upsetting. I really thought that I would enjoy this book. This is the first book in the Southern trilogy. Is that what it's called? Southern Zone? I don't know. It's about Area X, which has had many expeditions, many groups of people that have gone there. Supposedly it was an environmental disaster zone, so it's closed off to the public, and this expedition is going there to find out the secrets of Area X. So it's all very interesting. I just, again, did not care. I thought that what the author explored was not what I wanted to explore. I thought we could have gone somewhere much more interesting, and every time there was an inkling of something interesting that was going to happen, we drifted away from it, and I just did not get the answers that I wanted. And the second and third book are set not really in the same place, not really following the same characters, so the answers that I wanted, I just did not get them. And yes, the concept of what is living in this area is interesting, but it was not enough. And it's one of those books where I really just don't get the acclaim for it. I didn't think it was anything special. I know some people love this book and think it's revolutionary, and I'm not trying to say that it's not. I just particularly don't get it. I don't get it. I'm not a girly who gets it, and though that is upsetting, I think I have come to terms with it. Another book that I thought I would really enjoy, and I really, really didn't, was Chlorine by Jane Song. Chlorine was a mess, in my humble opinion. It was such a letdown for me. I thought it was going to be this thing, right? We have this main character, Ren, who wants to become a mermaid. They are a swimmer. They've been swimming their whole life, and it's really about body autonomy. It's about identity. It's mostly about that control of your body and how women feel when it relates to that. So I thought that some of the message in it was interesting. I just think it was not well accomplished at all. I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I thought the writing was not very good. It is a debut, so I don't want to criticize it too much, but I didn't think it was that good. The horror elements were just a mess. What you think is going to happen happens. The ending was weird. I just didn't like anything about it except the ideas. The message of this book was there, and I agree, and I liked it, but then the execution was just a mess, quite honestly. And now it is time. It's time to talk about the biggest sin of 2024. I get angry when I think of this book. None of the other books make me angry. This book makes me angry, and I don't even know why. I think objectively there are worse books, but this just pisses me off so much. It's a book that left the worst taste in my mouth the whole year, and it's just pissing me off. And that is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This book pissed me the fuck off. Like, I love Leigh Bardugo. How dare she? How could she write something that's this bad and this uninteresting? When I tell you I didn't like a single thing in the 150 pages that I read it, not a single redeeming quality in my own eyes. Maybe I'm wrong. There's a lot of people who love this book. There was also a lot of people that were disappointed by this book. But there wasn't a single thing that I liked about it. And I think that's wild considering it is Leigh Bardugo. It is a historical fantasy, which are things that I love. How did she miss so bad? I really just don't know. We are thrown into this book, and sometimes in a fantasy we're kind of thrown in the midst of this book. But I think that it didn't work well at all in this particular case because the biggest ick for me, I did not understand this main character. I didn't like her. I didn't root for her. And I just did not understand her motivations. I did not understand who she was, what the hell she was doing with her life, her intentions, her actions. I just did not understand any of it. I thought she was the most confusing and misdirected characters I've read in a long time. I just did not understand her motivations. I thought that the action was really, really boring. The forced romance in this book, appalling. I did not like this man, demon, whatever you want to call him. I did not like him. Again, I did not like a single thing about this book. And isn't that absolutely insane? Isn't that absolutely insane? That I didn't like a single thing in a book that I was so looking forward to reading. This was one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I bought this book full price because I wanted to love it so bad. And it was just such an insane letdown. Again, I'm angry when I think about this book. Should I be? Is it really that bad? No, but there's something in me that is just raging. And I hate the familiar. I feel so bad, but I hate the familiar. I'm getting a little bit emotional. Listen, give it a try if you think you'll like it. I didn't, as you can probably tell. I really didn't like this book, but that's okay. There are other books. So if you want some more positivity, you can go watch my best books of the year, which I talk about much more fondly and much more eloquently, probably. I just didn't like those books. But again, as I said, we are leaving them in this year as I am moving on to the next. These books are being left behind. I am not taking any of these books or any of these feelings into 2025. Anyway, I'm kind of scared to ask, but do you agree with me on any of these books? Did you also feel the same way about any of them? I'm kind of scared, but let me know. And also let me know which one was your worst book of the year, or if we have any worst books in common, that would be great. And again, I hope that 2025 is a much better reading year for all of us. I hope that next year I have almost no books to talk about. That would be a dream come true, quite honestly. But in any case, if you did enjoy watching this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for bookish content, and I'll see you in my next video. I hope you have a nice day, and always remember that life is worth reading.